Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed my tutorial video for XCOM the board game. I know it's a little bit frenetic the way I did it, but it's the best way to do it with this game because unfortunately this is the kind of game that is really played off the application. The application is pretty much going to judge the flow of the game. So what I was trying to do is give you a really good overview, and watching this video, the gameplay video, is going to help make it all make a heck of a lot more sense. So I have the game set up right now. I'm going to go ahead and play the domination mission. I'm going to go ahead and set everything up. So we got the app loaded. Now remember, normally the central officer controls the application, but I'm going to keep the application over here because I'm playing at one player and I don't want to stretch too much across everywhere. So basically we have domination selected as our mission that we're going to go to. The domination mission is set with the sepia side up, not the final mission side. Make sure you don't make that mistake. We have our track set at 0 here. Our threat track is currently at 1. And we have our reserves set up, and we're going to go ahead and start the application and figure out exactly what we're going to be dealing with. So we have domination set. We're knowing that first thing we have to fight is an outsider, a floater, a sectoid, and a sectoid commander. So we built our alien deck already with those 4 different kind of alien infiltrators that we're going to have to deal with. The next thing we're going to know is our headquarters is currently over here in Africa. And then finally, we know that the layout of all the continents, their panic levels on the panic track is going to be laid out exactly like the application shows us. So now that we're ready to go for it, we can go ahead and hit the start button and figure out exactly what's going to happen, figure out what our starting 6 cards are, and go ahead and figure out what our starting budget is. Here's the trick though. I have the application set for the easy difficulty level. Now the easy difficulty level makes the game pretty darn easy, but I did it for 2 reasons. One, I want to show you exactly how the game plays, which means I want to make sure I'm pausing it so I can explain everything to you as it's happening so you can see the reasoning behind all the decisions, which is something you're not normally going to get to do when you're playing the game because the game is all about that panic level. But I'm definitely going to be pausing it with each single decision and trying to explain to you exactly how that's working in reference to the game. My hope is to go through a full round of the time phase and then through the resolution phase and give you a really good idea of exactly how XCOM the board game plays. So now that we're ready to begin the game, let's go ahead and start. We simply hit the begin the round 1 button. It's going to give us a quick countdown, let us know that the application is ready to start and start making our lives really hectic. We're going to go ahead and pause the application right here. And the first thing it's going to say is that new technology is available, and this is a chief scientist thing that they need to do. So we're going to take the technology deck and we're going to make sure we go ahead and pick out 6 cards to form our hand. And while this is going on, we can see that the chief scientist really doesn't have a lot of time to figure out, grab 6 cards. And what they need to be doing right now is start going through all 6 of these cards and figuring out exactly which kind of technologies we want to try to start learning to help out the XCOM Universal Defense. Now that the chief scientist has their tech cards they're going to get to deal with, the central officer needs to hit the done button. And now what the application is going to do is going to tell us exactly how much money we have in the XCOM fund. So we just need a simple look and see that our budget is 13 credits. So we're going to take 13 credits and we're going to add this to the amount of money we have available to us. And we need to make sure that we do not go over budget, because if we do, things are going to get very difficult and very hectic for the XCOM UFO Defense Force. One really cool thing about the application though is it's starting to give the central officer a little bit of information they can use to start helping the rest of the forces figure out exactly what they want to do. You're going to see this little flashing symbol right here, and if we hit that, it's going to give us an idea of what our satellites are picking up on possible locations where future UFOs may be coming in. Now this intelligence is not always 100% accurate, but it does give you a rough idea that we can expect a UFO to be landing in Africa pretty darn soon, sometime during this time phase. So we want to make sure we're ready for this. And the central officer can start relaying this information to the other players so they can also start planning for this, especially the commander who controls the interceptors, who needs to figure out where they want to start spending the budget, our very limited 13 credit budget that we have for this turn. The central officer just simply presses done on the application. We're going to see that the next thing that's going to happen is pretty much what our intelligence told us, is that there is a UFO that's been detected. We see there's 1 blip only, which means only 1 UFO is going to land. It's going to land here in Africa. So we're going to add it to the board. And remember, this is where our XCOM base is, and if the panic level on our XCOM base ever gets in the red, we're going to lose access to our all-in-one special ability. So we definitely want to make sure these UFOs don't overrun us. That's it for the central officer. Press done. We're going to simply move on to the next thing, and we're going to see that now the commander needs to deal with a crisis. We have exactly 21 seconds to grab 2 cards from the crisis deck. We need to read both these crisis cards and figure out which of these 2 crises is the lesser of 2 evils and then we're going to put it on top of the crisis stack, and the other card is going to be discarded. Now the two panic or the two crisis cards we got are terrible and terrible, which is pretty much the way the whole crisis deck works. If we take this crisis card as a crisis we're going to have to deal with, the panic level for every single continent in the game is going to go up one level. If we pick this crisis level, every one of our scientists that we apply towards our scientific research this time is going to be pretty much ineffective, and they're going to remove from the board and put back in the stack here. Luckily, there's two ways we can get around this if we're smart about it, so it's not as bad as it looks. Because remember, the central officer has this really cool ability called mission control, which I can put one of our satellites over on top of that card, which is going to allow us to move one of our units from reserve back into the board or vice versa. So any negatives this card may cause us, we can counteract as long as we plan for it by having our satellites and we don't overspend our satellites. So we're going to look at our two options here. Panic is always a bad thing, so we're going to go ahead and pick the lesser of the two evils. We're going to go ahead and pick that crisis card. The other crisis card is discarded, and now we get to move on with the application and find out what evil is going to happen to us next. So now this is the time where the chief scientist needs to make a decision. The chief scientist has 6 cards in their hand, and we need to figure out exactly which one of these 6 cards we're going to place in the second spot, because it's assigned research 2, the second research spot, and we need to figure out which one of these technologies we want to research and figure out which one of these technologies are going to help the XCOM UFO defense the most, and then we need to figure out exactly how many scientists we need to want to work on it, while we're also remembering this crisis card we got to deal with, because one of our scientists that we're going to put here is going to be removed thanks to that card. Looking at our handle cards, we're going to see that the Shiv is probably the best thing we can put towards us, because this is going to allow us to at least have some extra successes on all our missions, and this is definitely a card we want to make sure that we manage to get into play. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 scientists on this towards us. It needs 2 successes to get, and if we are able to get this, we're going to have some extra special benefits, because we are going to be able to complete missions a little bit more efficiently, at least hopefully, if we can get it into play. That's it for the assigned research phase. We now get to move on to the next task, and the next task is we're going to see that there's going to be an enemy in the base. So this is something the squad leader needs to take care of. They're going to simply pick the top card of the invasion stack, and we're going to see that we're going to deal with an outsider eventually invading our base. It takes 2 successes to defeat it, and we can assign up to 3 soldiers to try to take him out, but he does have a special ability that we need to be very wary of, so we need to consider that when we start assigning our soldiers to the base defense. We're going to move on to the next thing, which is we're going to be able to choose a mission for the squad leader. So we're simply going to draw 2 cards from the mission deck, and we're going to look at these 2 missions and figure out which one of these missions are going to help us the most if we manage to complete it, and which one of these missions we need to discard and not use at this time. The 2 missions we got is we got terrorist site and we got alien abduction. Now terrorist site would normally be a really good mission to try to accomplish, because we reduce the panic level on any continent of our choice by 1, and then we're going to reduce the panic level in South America by 2. Well, we see that South America currently has no panic assigned to it at all, so it's probably not going to be a good idea to take this mission, since it's not going to help us that much. So we're going to go ahead and discard that mission, and then we're going to take the other mission, the alien abduction mission, which if we manage to succeed at this mission, we're going to be able to recruit 2 soldiers of our choice for free, and we're also going to be able to reduce the panic level in North America by 2, which is going to help us quite a bit. Since this mission shows that we need to have 2 aliens we're going to encounter, we can see that by the outlines here. We're going to put 1 alien card, and we're going to put a second alien card. And remember, all missions require 3 different tasks to complete. So we know that that's one of the missions we're going to be working for as quickly as we can. We need to move on to our next thing and figure out what the application is going to tell us to do. And we're going to see that we're dealing with more enemies inside the base. And we can also, as the central officer, see that we're going to get some future intel and see that we're going to get more UFOs coming into Africa. So we need to pay complete attention to that and make sure we're letting the other players know, because we have to be watching our budget. Our budget already has 2 credits assigned to it out of the 13 we have available. So we have to be very, very careful. So let's go ahead and figure out which enemy is also going to be infiltrating our base along with that outsider. So we have an outsider and a sectoid attacking our base. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. We're going to be able to see that we're assigning research to task number 3. So again, the chief scientist needs to look at the remaining 5 cards they have in their hand and figure out exactly which one of these technologies they want to work on, and figure out exactly how many scientists they want to send out there, while keeping an eye on our budget as the commander is slowly glowering at them and saying, "Don't go over budget." We're going to go ahead and pick our technology that we're going to research. We're going to research Carapace Armor. Now, Carapace Armor, if we do manage to research it, it's going to allow us to exhaust this card and roll the alien die one time if we are on a mission and we don't have the alien die working in our favor. So it's going to give us one extra roll. And we're going to go ahead and assign one scientist to it because it only takes one success, and we're hoping that's going to be enough. Remember, we're trying to work on that crisis card, but we actually do have a backup plan to take care of it. That's it for that one assignment that we have. The central officer is going to hit the done button. We're going to move on to the next thing, which is going to say that UFOs have been detected, which we already knew was coming, into Africa, meaning we now have 2 UFOs in Africa. And if the panic level in Africa gets too high, remember, we're going to lose access to our all-in-one card, so we want to make sure that does not happen. So now we get to deploy our squad to the mission. We need to figure out exactly which squad units we want to put on this mission. And that means we do get to reveal exactly what kind of aliens are going to be a part of this mission. And we need to figure out where we want to assign our units. And remember, we're fighting this timer normally, but I'm going to go ahead and pause it while we try to figure out exactly what we're going to do. Now remember, when it comes to missions, we can only assign a total of up to 4 soldiers to a mission. And of course, we have to make sure we're very mindful of the budget. So what we need to do is we need to figure out exactly which one of our soldiers are able to take care of each one of these situations. So we can see that a floater, thanks to this little symbol right here, we see that a floater can be taken out by a support, and it can also be taken out by a sniper because they both have that symbol on it. We see the second task on this mission can be handled by a support class. It can also be handled by a heavy. So we're seeing that support can handle this, and the support can also handle this spot right here. And then we see that this final floater can be handled by a support, and it can also be taken out by a sniper, or it can also be taken out by an assault unit. So we see that an assault or a support unit is going to be the most beneficial to us on this mission right here. So we're going to take 2 of our support guys and apply it towards this mission. And we know that our support guys can take care of the floater, they can take care of this task, and we know that one of them can be assigned to this final floater. We're going to hedge our bets and hope that these 2 guys are good enough because we don't want to spend too much money on our budget, because we want a lot of these science tech things to spend most of our money on right now. So we want to make sure we're not overcommitting our soldiers to these missions. And it's a gamble, but we're hoping this gamble is going to pay off for us. We're done with our task. We're going to move on to the next person, which is UFOs detected. And imagine that we're getting more UFOs in Africa where our XCOM base happens to be. You'd almost think this evil little application knows exactly where our XCOM base happens to be. You'd almost think it, wouldn't you? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to get emergency funding. Now, emergency funding is great. Emergency funding is decided by the commander. Remember, we have exactly 10 credits in emergency funding, and we can make a one-time decision. We need to make that decision now. And we need to figure out exactly how much extra credits we're going to burn out of our emergency funding and add it to our pool of money for this round. Now, we have to be very, very careful. Any money left over is not going to be re-added to our emergency funding at the end of the resolution phase. So we want to make sure we're not putting too much money in the emergency funding. But we need to make sure that we have enough left over to at least get the things we need done, like our base defense, get our technologies, and also protecting continents such as Africa, which is being overrun with a lot of aliens and a lot of UFOs right now. So we need to be considering all that right now. So we're going to take 3 credits out of the emergency funding, adding it to our 13 we currently have, bringing us a total of 16 credits in our funding for this entire round. Hopefully that's going to work out for us. Now that we're done with that, the central officer is going to push done on the application. We're going to see that we now get to send out some interceptors to figure out exactly where we want these interceptors to go. But if you look very carefully, we see that there's going to be a little bit more havoc caused by UFOs. Our radar shows that there's going to be at least one more potentially alien UFO coming to Africa. So knowing that information, and the central officer is yelling this out at the commander very quickly, we're going to go ahead and commit 3 interceptors to the defense of Africa. Hopefully that's going to be more than enough for us, because we're seeing there's going to be at least 4 UFOs here, but we also have the ability to send some of these UFOs up to orbit. So maybe we're actually going to go ahead and pull one of these back in case the dice are not completely in our favor. So that's part of the gamble and part of the decisions we're going to make. And we're going to go ahead and be done with that, move on to the next thing, and see that we get one more chance to do some research. And we don't really even have much time to do it. I technically only have 20 seconds to figure out exactly which card I want to put here. Luckily, I've already decided what I want to do. I want to do the light plasma rifle, which is going to help our support guys right here. And we're going to put 3 scientists towards this because we definitely want... actually, we'll just go with 2. This is definitely something that we want to make sure we successfully research. So now the chief scientist has figured out which 3 technologies we're going to research this round and exactly which scientists we're going to apply for it. We're doing pretty good. We know exactly what we want to be doing to help the XCOM defense. We're going to move on, and we're going to get the chance for the central officer to go ahead and deploy some satellites onto the board. Now, granted, there's nothing on the global level that we see coming yet. We can check our radar and see that the only thing we know about is this one coming in Africa. But the thing we have to remember is we have the ability to move some of these UFOs into orbit, which we can destroy with some of our satellites. So we're going to go ahead and take 2 of our satellites, because remember, satellites don't cost us too much damage if they're destroyed, unlike our units. So we're going to put 2 satellites into orbit with the future plan of moving some of these UFOs into orbit to blow them up, hopefully during the resolution phase. We're done with that. We're now going to move on and see that that UFO that we've been dreading is finally going to come into Africa. And we now have a total of 4 of them in Africa. We're going to move on. And now we have to see that we have to defend the base, which means we need to figure out which soldiers we're going to put into base defense to try to take care of these 2 aliens. And every alien we defeat is going to be salvaged for the science officer to use for their cards. Every alien we don't defeat is going to raise the damage to the base level up 1 point. So again, remember, we're trying to be mindful of our budget, but we definitely want to make sure our base doesn't fall, because no matter how well we do, or in this case, how bad we do, if our base happens to be defeated, even if we manage to keep the panic levels down, we are completely lost as an XCOM force. So we want to make sure that these 2 aliens don't manage to do any damage to our base. So we're going to go ahead and send 3 units out there to see if they're good enough to defend our base. And we're going to go ahead and move on. And we've now reached the ending of the time phase. This was actually a pretty easy time phase for the XCOM forces, which makes me wonder if the app is trying to be friendly to me to lead me into a sense of false hope. Now, normally during the ending phase, when you pay on any difficulty except the easy difficulty, it's going to give you a couple extra seconds for you to use any of your last-minute timed abilities. And the amount of time you have left to do this is going to be based on how little of your pause you actually use during your turn. So the less pause you have, the more time you're going to have during the ending phase to start using some of these extra special abilities. For example, this Sky Ranger card, which says put 2 soldiers on it to remove 1 card from the crisis stack of our choice, which is definitely a good thing to do right now. Another thing we can do is we can have one of our units that's not currently assigned to a task to gain the ability to be a commander. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch this out with this sniper, because remember, I'm using borrowed pieces from another game. And that way I can go ahead and make this guy a commander. So he's going to give me 1 extra die roll, which is definitely a good thing. The central officer is going to go ahead and use 2 satellites to allow them to move 2 UFOs from the continents out into orbit so they can be taken care of by these 2 satellites right here. And the chief scientist doesn't want to use his ability that is usable during the time phase, which is basically going to allow him to discard 2 cards, and then he can go ahead and draw 2 new cards to replace it. And the reason why we're not doing that is because we actually got some really good cards we want to make sure we keep, and we don't want to get rid of them. So that's going to end the time phase. We're going to go ahead as the central officer and click Done. It's going to tell us to go ahead and proceed, and we're now going to proceed to the resolution part of the turn. The game's going to remind us that we only have 13 credits in our budget. Well, what the game doesn't know is we're able to add 3 more credits from our emergency funding, so we now know that we have 16 credits currently in our funding, and we need to figure out exactly how much money we spent on this turn and make sure we did not go over budget, because if we did, the panic level is going to raise on some of these continents. Now remember, the very important thing here is, I got to emphasize this, is that you only need to spend money for units that were added to the board. Units that did card play are not going to cost you any money at all. So promoting him doesn't cost money. These 2 guys getting rid of that crisis card didn't cost me any money. And these 2 satellites I used to move these UFOs around is not going to cost me any money. I'm going to cost 3 credits for these guys, plus 2 is a total of 5, plus 2 more is 7, plus 2 more is 9, 1 more is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I managed to blow 14 credits. I have 16, so that means I have 2 credits left over for me to go ahead and spend in the next part of this phase, which is going to allow me to spend that money to go ahead and purchase some more units. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and purchase a sniper unit. Why? Because it sounds really good right now. And we're going to go ahead and purchase a heavy. Again, why? Well, it sounds like a really good idea to do right now, and it's part of our strategy of hoping to survive for more rounds. Now that we spent all the money left over in our budget, we're going to move on to the next thing, which is where we get to resolve any of the crisis. Well, luckily, we managed to use our special ability to make sure there's actually no crisis cards we need to deal with, so we can smile, grin, and move on. knowing that this application is planning to cause a lot of hurt very, very darn quickly, so let's not get a false sense of hope. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start resolving research, and we're going to resolve it from left to right, starting with the light plasma rifle, then we're going to move to the Shiv and the carapace armor. So while this is going on, while we're rolling the dice, the central officer's job is to keep moving up the threat track every time we decide to push her luck, and we get to decide if we're going to push her luck or not, and we have to roll the alien die every time we roll the die, and we're going to roll every one of these techs a certain amount of dice based on however many scientists we put towards that technology. So we're going to get 2 dice for the plasma rifle, 2 dice for the Shiv, and 1 dice for the carapace armor. We're going to go ahead and start with the light plasma rifle and see if we can successfully research this technology. And we're really hoping we do, because we're going to need it for that mission. So we have 2 scientists and a threat die. We're going to roll the die. As long as we don't get a 1, we should be okay. We're going to get a 2. We're not having any problems there yet. We're going to get 1 success. So the squad leader is going to throw 1 success token on there. Remember, we need 2 successes to successfully research the light plasma rifle. We're going to go ahead and say yes. We're going to press our luck. So the central officer is going to raise the threat track up to a 2. Which means if this red die is a 1 or 2 on the next turn, we're going to lose these scientists, so hopefully the roll will be in our favor. We're going to get a 4 and no successes, and we're going to decide to press our luck again, which means if we get a 3, 2, or 1, those guys are going to be exhausted. We're going to get a 6, so we're okay, and we're also going to get 2 successes. We only need 1 more, so happily everything's going to go in our way. The light plasma rifle is going to be successfully researched. It's a squad leader card, so we're simply going to add that card to the squad leader, who can now use that card for the rest of the game. And we're now going to move on to the Shiv and see if we can successfully research the Shiv. But before we do that, since it's a new thing we're trying to research, the threat track is going to be reset back down to 1. So now we have 2 scientists. We get 2 blue dice plus the threat die. We're going to roll it. We're going to get a 5. We're okay there. No successes. We're going to go ahead and press our luck, which means a 2 or a 1 means we're in trouble. We're going to get a 6, so we're fine there, and we're going to get 1 success. We still need 1 more success to get in. We really want this Shiv, so we're going to go all the way up to 3, needing 1 more success. We're going to get a 3, and we're not going to get any successes. That means these 2 scientists are going to be exhausted. We can't continue rolling for the Shiv anymore. The threat track is going to reset back down to 1, and we're going to work on the 3rd research, which is going to be the carapace armor. We're going to have 1 scientist, 1 die to roll. We're going to get an 8, no successes. We're going to push our luck again, see if we can manage to get any kind of successes here. We're going to get a 4, no successes. We're going to push our luck again. We're going to get a success and a 7, so we're fine. The carapace armor is successfully researched. It's a tech for the squad leader. We're going to give that card to the squad leader, who also has that card that they can use for the rest of the game. We're done with the chief scientist part. We just need to make sure we reset the threat track for the next player so they don't start at a disadvantage. So we're going to click the next button, and now we get to resolve orbital defense, which is a job for the central officer to go ahead and take care of. So now what we need to do during this phase is we need to blow up these UFOs with our 2 satellites, because if we don't, panic's going to be raised in one of the continents that's currently lowest on the panic track. So since we have 2 satellites, we get 2 blue dice. Let's see if we can go ahead and blow stuff up. We're going to fail. We're going to raise our level up 1. We're going to roll a 1 success, which means 1 UFO has been blown up, but we're also going to roll a 2, which would blow up both of these satellites, leaving 1 UFO in orbit, which is something we really don't like, so we're going to go ahead and take advantage of one of our cards that we can use during the resolution phase. Luckily, the central officer has a card called Central or Satellite Uplink, which they can exhaust to re-roll the threat die 1 time. We're going to re-roll it. We're going to get a 7. Now, that's the only time we can use that card during the resolution phase, so we can't fall back on it again, and we still have 1 UFO in orbit, and we're going to go ahead and press our luck, and hopefully we're not going to roll a 3, and hopefully we're going to get a success. And we didn't. So now we need to decide if we want to press our luck again. We have 1 UFO in orbit. Do we really want to do it? Ah, heck, why not? We're going to go up to a 4. We're going to press our luck because that's what we want to do. We're going to roll 2 successes and a 4. So unfortunately, both of our satellites can be blown up. But the good news is we got the UFOs, so we don't have to worry about our panic levels for our continents. We're happy with that decision. Let's go ahead and move on to the next job, which is going to be resolving global defense, which is a job for the commander. So the first thing we need to do is make sure the threat track is reset all the way back to 1, and we only actually have 1 continent we need to worry about, which is Africa. We currently have 2 interceptors there, which means we have 2 dice to roll. Threat track's currently at 1. As long as we don't get a 1, we should be okay. We're going to get a 2, and we're going to get 1 success. One of the UFOs is blown up. We're going to go ahead and press our luck. Hopefully we're not going to get a 2, and hopefully we're going to blow up that UFO. We're going to get 2 failures and a 7. We're going to push our luck again because we can. We're going to get a 6, and we're going to get 2 more fails again. Now we need to decide if we really want to push our luck and make this whole round a wash, because we gained 2 units, but we really don't want to lose 2 units to do that. And 1 panic level in Africa really is not too traumatic at this point, so we need to decide if we want to go for it or not. The thing we need to decide, though, we need to remember that if Africa ever gets in the red, we're going to lose access to our special ability that we can use, which is something we definitely don't want to lose access to. And actually, now that I think about it, I actually forgot to use Africa's ability during the time phase, which would have gave me 1 more credit in the emergency funding, but oh well, that's part of the panic of the game. You forgot to do something. It's too darn bad. You can't go back and take it back now. So I need to decide if I want to risk losing this UFO and getting rid of it, possibly losing my interceptors, or possibly having the panic level in Africa go up. Let's go ahead and go for broke. Let's see if we can do it. We have 2 interceptors. How badly can we roll? Famous last words. So I'm going to roll a 7, which is not a 4 or less, so I'm okay. I'm going to get a success. The last UFO is destroyed. We don't have to worry about it because any UFOs that aren't destroyed are going to carry over to the next round. They don't disappear. They stay on the board if they're not destroyed. So it's a good thing we did that. We're actually looking pretty darn good for now, but let's not say it too loud because the application is always listening. The commander's job is done. We hit the next button and it's going to tell us to resolve the base defense, where we need to assign our soldiers and try to take out these infiltrators who are trying to do damage to our base. And this is one of the very tough parts of the game, because remember, if our base gets destroyed, no matter how well we're doing on the rest of the game, we still lose. We're going to go ahead and decide that we're going to start with the sectoid first. The first thing we do is we need to reset the threat track all the way back down to 1. Now there's only 2 symbols on the sectoid, which means only 2 soldiers can try to take it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to match the yellow symbol with one of our guys who has the yellow symbol, which is an assault guy. So he's now going to get 2 dice to roll instead of just the 1 he'd normally get. And the other symbol we have is we have that bullseye symbol, which can be handled by the sniper. So we're going to go ahead and put the sniper here, and we're going to get a total of 3 dice to roll to try to take out this sectoid. The trick is the sectoid has a special ability that says the very first success I get versus him, even though he only needs 1 success to defeat, the very first success I get is going to be completely ignored, making him kind of a pain in the neck. So we're going to go ahead and roll the dice. Hopefully we're not going to get a 1, because if we do, both these soldiers are going to be obliterated. We're going to roll. We're going to get a 6 and no successes. We're going to go ahead and push our luck. Hopefully this is going to work out in our benefit. And we're going to get 2 successes, and we're going to get a 3, which is not equal to the 2, which is what the threat track is at. So remember, the first success is ignored, and then the second success gets through. That means the sectoid is going to be destroyed. He's going to become a scrap or salvage, which can be used by the chief scientist if he gets certain cards into play. And now the threat track does not reset on base defense, and we still have 1 more alien to defeat, and we're going to send all 3 of our guys against him, and we got to watch out for his special ability. And remember, we need 2 successes to take this guy out. So since this outsider happens to have 3 symbols on him, that means I can assign 3 guys to take him out, as long as their symbols match one of the symbols on the same creature we're trying to fight. Again, I need 2 successes to take him out, and also if he is defeated, which I'm really hoping he is, he does not turn to salvage, because he has a special ability saying that he is disintegrated if he's defeated. Here's the trick. Remember, the threat track does not reset when we're defending the base. So now we're going to be rolling the dice again. This is our 3rd roll. We need to get 2 successes, and hopefully we're not going to roll a 3 or less, because if we do, we're going to lose all 3 of our soldiers attached to that 1 unit. So we're going to roll. We're going to get 1 success. Not quite enough to defeat him. That's 1 success down. The threat track is now at 4. Here's the trick here. Injured aliens can still do damage to the base, so if I go for it and I manage to defeat him, I don't have to worry about base damage, but if I don't defeat him, he's going to do a point of damage. And if I roll a 4 less on the threat die, I'm going to lose all 3 of those soldiers. So now I kind of have a predicament, but I need to go for it. But if I roll badly, I'm going to lose 3 credits effectively, because I'm going to lose all 3 of those units. So 4 or less is the threat track. We're going to go ahead and roll. We're going to get an 8. We're okay on the threat track, but we didn't get a single success. So now we need to figure out if we want to use one of our special abilities. Remember that light plasma rifle technology that we researched as the chief scientist earlier? Well, do we really want to see if we can avoid rolling a 5 or less and risk losing 3 of those units? Probably not. So we're going to go ahead and exhaust the light plasma rifle that says if you have 1 assault unit assigned to this task, you can go ahead and get 1 success added on. We're going to go ahead and use that ability so we don't have to roll the die. He's going to be defeated, but since he has that special ability, he's not going to turn to salvage, but at least we don't have to worry about our base taking any damage this turn. That ends the base defense step. That is going to reset the threat track, and all 3 of these soldiers return back to the base. Now we move on in the resolution phase. The next thing the app is going to ask us is it's going to say, was the base destroyed, yes or no? Well, it was not destroyed, so we get to carry on, and we're not in a bad predicament. So now we get to resolve the mission. So I have 2 units on the mission. Threat track is going to be back on 1. And remember, we can't work on the final mission until the game tells us to flip that card over, and then it's going to actually say final mission versus resolve mission. That'll be a slight difference. So we're going to go ahead and start with the very first task, where we're going to assign 1 unit to it. We need to get 1 success versus this floater who has no special abilities. We have 1 unit assigned, 1 threat die, and we're going to roll. Well, as you can see, we didn't get a success on this mission, so we're going to go ahead and push our luck. Roll the dice. We're going to get a 7, and hey, we got a success. So this is going to be defeated. It's going to turn into salvage. We have now managed to complete 1 task on this mission. The threat track does not reset, and we need to decide if we want to start working on the second task. Well, the second task with the units we have assigned to it is actually going to allow us to roll 3 dice. We get 2 because we have the matching yellow symbol from the support unit and the support unit, plus we're going to get a 3rd from the second unit being assigned to this task. It's going to be the second roll we're making, or actually this is going to be the 3rd roll we're making. So that does mean that if I do decide to go for it, if I get a 3 or less, these 2 units are going to be destroyed. But I have 3 dice to roll to try to see if I can get at least 1 success. We're going to go ahead and press our luck and see if we can go for it. We are going to roll this again since the interceptor got in the way. And we're still going to get a failure. We're going to roll a 1. A 1 is equal to 3 or less. So both of these units failed on the mission. They did not get a success on that task. So that means they're both going to be killed. Luckily, we do have 1 recourse here. This is again where I said earlier where these technologies are going to come in really, really handy. We have the Carapace armor, which it says we can exhaust to go ahead and re-roll the alien die on any mission. We're going to re-roll it and get a 7 so we don't lose our 2 guys. And now we need to decide if we want to go for it, which would be a 4 or less, where we get to roll 3 dice and see if we can get a success on this mission, or we're going to lose these guys. Something we got to decide if we want to do, because unlike all the other units we put to work on the board at the end of every single resolution phase, units assigned to a mission never return to the base until they're either all dead or the mission is completed, which means these guys are going to be stuck on this mission until they're either done or they're dead. So I can keep going, which is what I'm going to do. Hopefully I'm not going to roll a 4 or less, and I'm going to get at least 1 success, maybe 2, maybe, yep. So the threat was at 4. I rolled a 5. I'm okay there. I got 2 successes. Now successes don't carry over. They all apply towards a single task. So I got 2 parts of the mission done. I could go for the 3rd part, but I'd have to get a 5 or better, or I'm sorry, a 6 or better on the threat die. I'm just not feeling that lucky. So these guys are going to stop on that part of the mission. Hopefully they can finish the rest of the mission on the next resolution phase. The next thing the application is going to do is it's going to ask us for the current panic level for all the continents currently. And it doesn't care exactly where they are in the yellow, where they are in the red, or where they are on the orange. You just have to move them. If they happen to move up to the red, you're going to pick whichever continent have to move to the red. Whichever one happen to move up to the orange, you're going to move them wherever they happen to be in relation to the current panic levels. Luckily, all of our continents are still in condition yellow, so we don't have to worry about it. We're going to leave them all in the condition yellow status. Then we're going to move on to the next part where it's going to ask us if we were able to complete a mission this turn. We weren't able to complete it. We still have 1 more task to go. So it's not completed, which the application is going to apply towards seeing if the final mission is going to appear on the next round or not. Pretty much it means that it's not going to happen at this point, at least this early in the game. So we're going to move on to the next thing where we get to refresh all of our units and refresh all of our cards. So the first thing we need to do is we need to look to see if we have any exhausted cards that are currently, or exhausted cards and exhausted units that aren't currently on the board. Well, the only thing we have is a couple exhausted cards, so we're going to go ahead and remove them from exhausted status. If we had any of these things that were exhausted that weren't currently on the board, we could refresh them, but since that isn't currently the status, we can't do that at all. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take any cards that were discarded the prior round. They're going to go to the bottom of their respective decks. And that's going to go for the mission that was not chosen. That goes for the crisis cards also, and any other cards such as aliens that we may have defeated. And then after we've done that part, we're going to move on to the next part of the resolution phase, where it's going to tell us to take everything back off the board except for any units that are currently assigned to a mission. Because remember, when you're assigned to a mission, you're stuck on that mission until you're dead or the mission is completed. So basically, everything needs to be returned to exactly where they came from. But remember, everything that was exhausted is not refreshed, so make sure you don't make that mistake. So even guys who are sent out to cards to go do various tasks, they get to be returned. These guys, in your future guys, you can still recruit. Stay here. They're only come back if they're ever recruited, so you don't exactly have access to them at this time. If we have some funding left over at a later date, that'd be a great thing for us, but we don't really have that situation going on right now. Now that all that's done, we're ready to move on to the next part of the resolution phase, where it's going to ask us if we have any UFOs in orbit. If we don't, we're going to move on, and now it's asking us if we're ready to begin round number 2. That's a complete round of XCOM, the board game. The game is going to keep on going like this until finally you manage to unlock the final mission, and you actually happen to manage to complete the final mission. If you manage to complete the final mission, you're going to win the game. If the base is ever completely infiltrated, or if 2 continents ever reach fully into 100% panic, you lose the game. I hope you enjoyed this sample gameplay for XCOM the board game. If you have any questions, please leave them in the YouTube comments below. Stay tuned for my final review of XCOM the board game after this.